Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to unpack something really crucial if your organization is using, or maybe even just thinking about using, artificial intelligence governance. Specifically, we're digging into the ISO IEC 38507.2022 standard. Think of this as kind of your shortcut to understanding the essential principles guiding the responsible use of AI.
That's right. And whether you're, a seasoned executive grappling with AI strategy or maybe just curious about how organizations are navigating this whole new technological landscape, understanding AI governance isn't just a nice to have anymore. It's pretty fundamental.
Totally.
And let's face it, wading through international standards, well, it can feel a bit daunting, can it? So our goal today is really to make this accessible and, relevant for you.
Exactly. Consider us your guides through this maybe somewhat dense but incredibly important territory.
Okay.
We're focusing on the initial building blocks of this standard clauses 1 through 4 just to give you a really solid foundation. Our mission is to sort of distill these clauses into clear, understandable insights you can actually use.
And keep in mind, this isn't just some abstract theory. The ISO IEC 38507 standard is an internationally recognized set of guidelines aimed squarely at helping governing bodies get a handle on AI. So let's just jump right in with Clause 1, scope. What's the big picture? What's this document trying to cover?
Okay, so Clause 1, it basically sets the stage, right? It says who the standard is for and what it aims to achieve. The core purpose is to provide guidance to the governing body of an organization, I think your board of directors or like the top leadership team, on how to enable and govern the use of AI effectively, efficiently, and crucially in a way that's acceptable within the organization. So the key takeaway here is that AI governance is really a top-down concern.
That's a crucial point, yeah. And while the governing body is the primary audience, the standard also recognizes that this guidance can be really valuable for a much wider group.
Yeah.
This includes, executive managers who are actually putting the AI strategies into action, external specialists like legal and accounting advisors who need to assess the implications, and even like industry associations and professional bodies shaping best practices.
So it's not just for the absolute top brass.
No, not at all. It's really for anyone involved in shaping or scrutinizing AI within an organizational context.
Okay, that makes sense. It sounds like it's about getting everyone speaking the same language and understanding the fundamental principles. What about those setting broader rules, like, say, public authorities or policymakers? Is this useful for them, too?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. This standard can serve as a really valuable reference point for developing regulations and policies related to AI. And similarly, those who provide services around AI, like consultants helping with adoption, and maybe assessors or auditors checking for compliance, they'll find clear guidance on what good AI governance looks like. So yeah, it has implications at multiple levels.
Gotcha. So it's a pretty broad reach then. And it's not just about the AI systems that are already up and running, is it?
No, not at all. Clause 1 explicitly states that this guidance applies to both current uses of AI and any future applications an organization might be considering. It's about embedding good governance principles right from the start, the initial stages of planning and development.
So like building the framework before you build the AI itself.
Exactly. Think of it as building a strong ethical and strategic framework first.
Okay. And what about the types of organizations? Is this just for like big tech companies or large corporations?
No, the standard is very clear on that. It applies to any organization, regardless of its type, public, private, government body, nonprofit, you name it. It also doesn't matter how big or small the organization is or even how much they currently rely on data or traditional IT. If you're touching AI or thinking about it, this standard has something to say to you.
So the key insight there is really that AI governance isn't just for the tech giants. It's basically on the radar for everyone.
Exactly.
Okay, that gives us a good handle on the scope. Now let's move on to Clause 2, normative references. This sounds a bit technical. What are these references, and why should we pay attention to them?
Yeah, it does sound technical, doesn't it? But think of normative references as sort of the mandatory background reading.
Okay.
These are other standards that this one directly refers to, and their rules effectively become part of this AI governance guide. So if a document is listed here, it basically means you need to consider its content to fully understand and apply ISO EC 38507.
And there are a couple of specific documents flagged as these like must-read references.
Yes, two key ones. The first is ISO IEC 22989. Now, at the time this standard, 38507, was published, 22989 was actually still in the final stages of development. But this document is all about the fundamental concepts and terminology of artificial intelligence. So it's kind of like the dictionary foundational concepts guide for the whole field.
So if we're talking about AI governance, this first reference helps make sure everyone understands what we even mean by AI in the first place, like setting the definitions.
Precisely. Yeah, it lays down the common language and the shared understanding of AI concepts.
Yeah.
The second normative reference is ISO IEC 308500 from 2015, which focuses on the broader governance of information technology within an organization.
Okay. So this puts the AI-specific guidance into the context of how an organization already manages its technology, potentially. It's like saying AI governance isn't some standalone thing. It needs to integrate with existing IT governance frameworks.
Exactly. ISO IEC 308500 provides the high-level principles and framework for good IT governance, and then this standard, 38507, builds upon that to address the unique challenges and opportunities presented specifically by AI.
Right.
Looking at both really gives you a more complete picture, a more connected understanding. So the takeaway here is that this AI governance standard doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's built upon, a shared understanding of AI itself and these broader principles of IT governance.
Got it. So if you're really serious about implementing this standard, you'll probably want to familiarize yourself with these reference documents too. Okay, let's move to Clause 3, terms and definitions. Now, this might sound a bit like technical housekeeping, but clear definitions are absolutely essential, aren't they? Especially with something as nuanced as AI.
Oh, you're spot on. Yeah. In any technical field, and particularly in one that's evolving as rapidly as AI, having clear and ideally universally understood definitions is just crucial. It helps avoid misunderstandings, ensures everyone's on the same page when discussing governance implications. Think of it as establishing like a common vocabulary for our AI governance discussion.
And this standard even points us to some external official sources for terminology, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It directs us to two key online resources maintained by the International Electrotechnical Commission, IEC, and the International Organization for Standardization, ISO. There's the IEC Electropedia and the IS Online Browsing Platform. These are, authoritative databases for a huge range of technical terms used across various industries and standards.
That's handy.
Yeah, so if you encounter a term you're unsure about, maybe in this standard or others, these are your kind of go-to resources for the official definitions.
That's good to know, having those official resources right there. But Clause 3 also gives us some specific definitions that are particularly relevant to AI governance within the context of this standard, right?
That's correct, yeah. Clause 3 defines some key terms that are really fundamental to understanding the governance of AI. Let's start with use of AI. How does the standard define that one?
Okay, it's defined quite broadly, actually. It says developing or applying an AI system through any part of its life cycle to fulfill an organization's objectives. And there's a really important note attached saying this is specifically about AI-related actions that have implications for governance. So it's not like every single tiny thing you do with AI, but the things that have broader organizational consequences.
Exactly. It covers everything from, say, the initial research and development of an AI system, right through to its deployment, operation, and even its eventual decommissioning. And the focus, as you said, is on those activities that raise governance questions or have governance ramifications.
Makes sense.
The next key term is oversight. What's the definition provided for that?
Oversight is defined as monitoring of the implementation of organizational and governance policies and management of associated tasks, services, and products set by the organization in order to adapt to changes in internal or external circumstances. And there's a note highlighting that effective oversight requires a sort of general understanding of what's going on and that it's a core principle of governance detailed in another standard, ISO 37000.2021. So it's not just about having policies in place, but actively checking if they're being followed and, adapting as things change.
That's a critical distinction, isn't it? But oversight isn't passive. It's an active and adaptive process. It's about ensuring that the organization's objectives and policies are being met, especially when you introduce something as dynamic as AI.
Right.
The next term is pretty central to any discussion of governance. Risk. How's that defined?
Risk is defined simply as the effect of uncertainty on objectives. And there are a few really important notes here. First, that a risk can be positive or negative, so it can create both potential downsides and potential opportunities.
Interesting.
Yeah. Second, that objectives can be at all levels of the organization: strategic, operational, financial, whatever. And third, that risk is usually understood by looking at its sources, potential events, the consequences if those events happen, and how likely they are. And this all points back to ISO 301000.2018.
Okay.
So risk isn't just about avoiding bad outcomes. It's really about managing uncertainty in all its forms in relation to what the organization is trying to achieve.
These nuances are absolutely key. Risk management, especially in the age of AI, needs to consider both the potential downsides, the risks we traditionally think about, and the potential upsides and opportunities that AI might create or enable. And understanding the source and likelihood, as the definition says, is crucial for effective governance.
Right.
Now, building on the concept of risk is risk appetite. How's that defined?
Okay, risk appetite is the amount and type of risk that an organization is willing to pursue or retain. And this definition points us to an older guide, ISO Guide 73 from 2009. So basically, it's about how much uncertainty an organization is comfortable with in pursuit of its goals. This is going to be a really critical factor when organizations are deciding how aggressively to adopt AI, isn't it? Different organizations will have very different levels of comfort with the potential risks and rewards.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. An organization's risk appetite will heavily influence its strategic decisions around AI adoption and use. Now, let's move to the definitions related to compliance. First up, we have compliance obligations.
These are defined as requirements that an organization mandatorily has to comply with, as well as those that an organization voluntarily chooses to comply with. And this references ISO 37301.2021. So it's not just about the laws and regulations you have to follow. It also includes any commitments or standards the organization chooses to adhere to. It's a much broader view of what the organization needs to answer to.
That's right. It's a comprehensive definition. It includes both the legally binding stuff and the ethical or voluntary commitments an organization makes. And finally, we have compliance itself.
Which is simply defined as meeting all the organization's compliance obligations, again referencing ISO 37301.2021. So it's the state of actually fulfilling all those requirements, both mandatory and voluntary. It's the outcome you're aiming for.
Exactly. These definitions in Clause 3, they're really fundamental. They provide that shared understanding of the key terms we'll be using as we talk more about the governance implications of AI. Without this common language, effective communication and governance would be, well, almost impossible.
Yeah, I can see that.
So the big takeaway here is probably that establishing a clear and shared vocabulary around AI governance is the crucial first step for any organization.
Agreed. Clarity in language is so important, especially in a field as complex and, frankly, fast-moving as AI. Okay, let's move on then to Clause 4, which really gets to the heart of our discussion. Governance implications of the organizational use of AI. This is where we start to see how introducing AI really changes the game for organizational governance.
Exactly. Clause 4 kicks off by reminding us of the fundamental purpose of organizational governance in the first place, to help the organization achieve its objectives and create value for itself and its stakeholders. It even references ISO 31000 again, talking about how governance guides the organization and establishes the necessary rules and processes. The core idea here is that effective governance provides direction and ensures accountability.
Right. And it emphasizes that while the management team translates this high-level direction into specific strategies and objectives, the governing body's responsibilities now extend beyond just, say, financial performance, especially with the increasing role of AI.
That's a key evolution, isn't it?
Sure.
The governing body needs to consider the broader impact of AI on the organization's culture, its core values, its ethical responsibilities. The standard also reminds us that policies are created and enforced through, well, a whole variety of mechanisms.
Like what?
Well, things like formal documents, business plans, strategies, but also less formal aspects like job descriptions, professional conduct expectations, even things like training programs and KPIs, key performance indicators. It's really a multifaceted approach to setting and maintaining direction.
And there's a really critical point made here about accountability, isn't there? That the governing body can't simply delegate away its responsibility, particularly when it comes to something with the transformative potential and, let's be honest, potential risks of AI.
Absolutely. The standard is crystal clear on this. The governing body remains accountable for all of the organization's activities, and this accountability cannot be outsourced and delegated away. They have a continuous responsibility to consider the implications of any new technology being introduced, and AI certainly sits right at the top of that list right now. So while the fundamental responsibility of good governance isn't new, the emergence of AI demands a renewed focus and, frankly, a better understanding from the governing body.
So, okay, the responsibility for good governance isn't new with AI, but the potential of AI to fundamentally reshape how organizations operate means the governing body needs to be even more vigilant and informed than ever.
Precisely. AI can unlock completely new possibilities, significantly enhance existing operations, often with, amazing efficiency and effectiveness gains. But this also leads us straight into the next crucial part of Clause 4, maintaining effective governance when AI is introduced. The standard highlights that existing governance structures and processes, which might have been perfectly adequate before AI, may no longer be fit for purpose in an AI-driven environment.
Right. Just because an organization has well-established ways of governing its IT systems or its overall business operations, those frameworks might need a significant reevaluation, maybe even an overhaul,
Yeah,
when AI comes into the picture.
exactly.
And the standard clarifies that while the specific choice of which AI tools to use is typically a management decision, those choices must ultimately align with the broader strategic guidance and risk appetite established by the governing body. Is that right?
Exactly. And to provide that informed guidance, the governing body needs to develop a, let's say, foundational understanding of AI. They don't need to become AI experts themselves, not necessarily. Yep. But they do need a solid grasp of the potential strategic benefits AI can offer, the significant risks it might introduce both to the organization and its stakeholders, and any new legal, ethical, or operational obligations that might arise from its use. So the core insight here is that the governing body kind of needs to upskill its understanding of AI to govern it effectively.
And one of the most critical things the governing body needs to do, it seems, is to rigorously assess the intended uses of AI in relation to the organization's overall risk appetite. This feels particularly vital with AI because the risks can be so novel and can evolve so rapidly.
It's absolutely paramount. Yeah.
Yeah.
The standard emphasizes the dynamic nature of AI-related risks and the critical need for a proactive and adaptive approach to risk management. Organizations need to be prepared to adjust their plans, maybe even to halt or reverse AI initiatives if emerging risks start to exceed their defined risk appetite. It's about being agile and really risk-aware in your AI adoption strategy.
Okay. And then Clause 4 delves into the specifics of some of the key new implications that arise when an organization starts using AI. It's a fairly extensive list, isn't it? Covering a wide range of considerations, from data quality to the crucial aspect of explainability in AI systems.
Yes, it highlights several key areas where AI introduces new challenges and demands careful attention from the governing body. For instance, the increased reliance on technology for collecting and processing data that makes ensuring the quality and integrity of that data even more critical, right? Because AI systems are only as good as the data they learn from.
Garbage in, garbage out, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. And the transparency and explainability of AI systems is a huge one, particularly when AI is being used to make decisions that directly impact individuals, things like loan applications or recruitment processes.
Right.
We need to understand the objectives, the underlying assumptions, the rules embedded in these automated systems. We also need to have processes in place to modify and update them as needed. The whole black box nature of some AI can be a real governance headache.
Absolutely. I mean, how do you govern something you don't fully understand? The standard even provides a simple but powerful example, doesn't it? About instructing a human versus an AI.
Yeah, it does. It compares telling a human employee to defer credit repayment until after the holidays versus the level of precise detail an AI system would require to execute that same instruction correctly. It really underscores the fundamental differences in how we need to direct and oversee AI compared to human employees.
That makes sense.
It also touches on the potential for existing organizational directions and controls to become inadequate or even undermined by the use of AI simply because AI systems operate on different principles and assumptions than humans do.
That's a really important point. What works when you're delegating a task to a person might not be sufficient or even relevant when that task is being augmented or automated by an AI. The standard also raises the somewhat counterintuitive point about potential competitive pressures from organizations that are not using AI. What's that about?
Well, it implies that organizations need to consider the competitive landscape, potentially being left behind if competitors leverage AI effectively, or perhaps facing pressure if competitors choose not to use AI for ethical or reputational reasons. It adds another layer to the strategic decision-making.
Interesting.
And then there are the significant risks associated with simply adopting AI without fully understanding its potential for inaccuracies, biases, or even causing harm, and how integrating AI into complex existing systems can amplify these risks in unforeseen ways.
So the "we bought an AI, now everything's better" approach is clearly a dangerous one from a governance perspective.
Definitely, it's a recipe for trouble.
And the standard also brings up a really thought-provoking issue: the growing disparity between the speed at which AI learning systems can evolve and the ability of traditional human compliance controls to keep pace. That sounds like a potential runaway train scenario, if not managed carefully.
It absolutely does. It requires a fundamental rethinking of how we monitor and ensure compliance in a world where AI systems can adapt and change so rapidly. The standard also emphasizes the significant impact of AI on the workforce,
Ah,
raising concerns around potential discrimination, worker rights, job displacement, the need for reskilling initiatives. However, it also points out the potential to leverage AI for positive outcomes like boosting creativity, improving the overall quality of work by delegating repetitive or hazardous tasks to AI. It's a complex balancing act.
it truly is a double-edged sword, isn't it? AI can automate mundane tasks, freeing up people for more strategic work, but it also necessitates really careful consideration of the human element, the workforce impact. Finally, Clause 4 touches on the potential impact of AI on an organization's commercial operations and its brand reputation.
Right, which can be severely damaged if AI is not implemented and governed responsibly. A well-publicized failure or misstep with AI can have significant and lasting negative consequences for an organization's brand and customer trust.
Yeah, definitely.
However, it's not all potential downsides. The standard also makes a crucial point that AI can actually reduce certain existing risks within an organization.
That's an important counterpoint. So it's not just about new risks. AI can also be a powerful tool for mitigating existing ones.
Absolutely. AI can improve accuracy in repetitive tasks, provide continuous monitoring for anomalies. The example given about security guards using AI to enhance surveillance is a good illustration of this.
Okay.
And it can assist in various other ways to lower existing risk levels.
Yeah.
The governing body needs to ensure its risk assessments are updated to reflect these potential risk reductions, as well as the new risks introduced by AI. So the key takeaway here is that introducing AI isn't just about adding a new technology. It fundamentally reshapes the organization's risk landscape, both by introducing new risks and by potentially mitigating existing ones.
Wow. Okay, so Clause 4 really paints a comprehensive picture of how introducing AI isn't just a minor tweak, but a significant shift in the governance landscape, demanding careful consideration of a really wide range of factors. Now let's move to the final part of Clause 4. Maintaining accountability when introducing AI. This feels like it circles right back to that core principle we discussed earlier about the governing body's ultimate responsibility.
It does indeed. The standard reiterates that the members of the governing body retain responsibility for the oversight and the overall outcomes of the organization. And this explicitly includes the systems and practices used for assurance. They are accountable for all decisions made within the organization, including those informed by or made by AI systems.
That's all of them.
All of them. And for ensuring that the governance frameworks and controls in place where AI is deployed are robust and effective. Ultimately, the governing body is accountable for the uses of AI that the organization deems acceptable. The core insight here is really, the board can't just buy an AI system and then wash their hands of its consequences. They're ultimately on the hook.
And there's a really strong emphasis, isn't there, on the fact that the governing body should take direct responsibility for how AI is used, rather than trying to sort of deflect that responsibility onto the AI system itself. You can't blame the algorithm, so to speak.
Exactly. AI is a tool,
Yeah.
and like any tool, its impact depends entirely on how it's wielded. The governing body must own the decisions surrounding AI adoption and application. The standard also explicitly cautions against anthropomorphizing AI, attributing human-like qualities, intentions, or moral judgments to these systems.
That makes perfect sense. Thinking of AI as having its own agency or like its own ethical compass can lead to a fundamental misunderstanding of its capabilities and limitations. It's a tool, not a moral agent.
Precisely. The standard stresses the importance of understanding AI's role in its proper context as a technology deployed and managed by humans. It then goes on to explain the potential legal and reputational consequences for governing body members if organizational missteps related to AI happen because of inadequate diligence, care, guidance, training, oversight, or enforcement. Yeah. This could unfortunately lead to various penalties, including removal from their positions or even legal action. So the stakes are pretty high for effective AI governance.
So this isn't just an abstract discussion about best practices. There are real-world consequences for failing to govern AI responsibly. Okay. The standard then outlines some specific areas where the governing body needs to ensure its practices are appropriately adapted for the use of AI, starting with direction. What does that cover?
Yes, under direction, the governing body needs to critically review and potentially update its core guiding principles. This includes its policies, its overall strategy, how resources are allocated, its ethical guidelines and codes of conduct, and its statement of core values to explicitly address the integration and use of AI across the organization.
Okay, so basically bake AI considerations into the core strategic documents. And then there's oversight, a term we defined earlier. In the specific context of AI, what are some of the key aspects the governing body should be actively overseeing?
Right. For AI oversight, the governing body should be evaluating the AI systems themselves, assessing their value to the organization, ensuring they align with the organization's defined risk appetite, and verifying that there are robust mechanisms in place for implementation, ongoing monitoring, performance measurement, and overall assurance of decisions made or informed by AI. It's about ensuring the AI is doing what it's supposed to, safely and ethically.
Got it. Next up is evaluation. What does that involve when we're talking about governing AI?
Evaluation in this context involves a pretty thorough consideration of a wide range of factors, both internal and external to the organization. This includes identifying and assessing current and future threats and opportunities related to AI, analyzing the actual outcomes achieved through the use of AI, determining the effectiveness of the AI governance mechanisms that have been put in place, and making informed judgments about the various decisions and strategic options taken regarding AI. It's really a holistic assessment of AI's impact and the effectiveness of its governance.
Okay, a broad review. And finally, we have reporting. How does the governing body effectively communicate its approach to AI governance and its performance in this area to its various stakeholders?
Effective reporting is basically about demonstrating to all relevant stakeholders, shareholders, customers, regulators, employees, whoever, that the organization's use of AI is being managed responsibly and ethically by those who are ultimately accountable. The standard even draws a parallel here to the evaluate, direct, and monitor responsibilities outlined in that broader IT governance standard,
Yeah.
ISO IEC 308500. So yeah, it's about transparency and building trust.
So it's about being transparent and assuring stakeholders that AI is being managed responsibly at the highest levels. The standard also offers some practical steps that the governing body can take to ensure it has the necessary skills and understanding to effectively govern AI, doesn't it?
Yes, it recommends several concrete actions, things like actively working to improve the AI-related knowledge and skills of the governing body members themselves.
That seems key.
Absolutely. Also, increasing the frequency with which the organization's use of both traditional IT and AI is reviewed at the board level, updating the criteria used to monitor the internal and external environments for relevant AI-related developments and trends, and ensuring that the interests and concerns of the organization's staff are adequately represented and considered in AI-related decisions.
And the suggestion of strengthening oversight by establishing dedicated subcommittees focused on specific areas like strategy, risk management, assessment, audit, and even ethics. That seems like a really practical way for organizations facing significant AI adoption to bring more focused expertise to these critical areas.
It definitely allows for a more specialized and in-depth focus on these crucial aspects of AI governance. The standard then reinforces the need for clearly established accountability across every single stage of AI use, from the initial consideration of potential impacts right through to the eventual decommissioning of AI systems and the management of the data and knowledge they contain. It's really a cradle-to-grave approach to accountability.
It's a really comprehensive view, isn't it? Covering everything from formulating business strategies that effectively incorporate AI to implementing robust security controls to protect data and systems in an AI-driven environment, and even planning for the end of life of AI systems and the data they hold.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It emphasizes the need to think through the entire life cycle and all potential points of interaction with AI within the organization. Finally, Clause 4 concludes by highlighting some other broader issues associated with adopting new technologies, not just AI in isolation, that can have significant implications for the organization and its stakeholders.
Okay, what kind of things?
Well, potential pitfalls, like misunderstanding the fundamental nature of the technologies being adopted, making poorly informed governance decisions as a result, failing to properly include AI within the existing scope of governance oversight, applying technologies inappropriately or maybe too broadly without sufficient context-specific awareness, planning, policy, or adequate training. Also, failing to effectively protect the organization's information and assets against AI-powered automated attacks, and maybe not adequately addressing the complex and evolving dynamics of human-AI relationships within the workplace and beyond.
It serves as a crucial reminder that AI is just one piece of a larger and increasingly complex technological puzzle.
Precisely. And effective governance requires that holistic perspective,
Yeah.
considering all these interconnected elements.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into these initial foundational clauses of the ISO AC 38527 standard. It's really clear that governing AI effectively is a complex, multifaceted undertaking that demands careful attention and proactive engagement from the very highest levels of an organization.
Absolutely. Establishing this solid foundational understanding of the scope, the crucial normative references, the key definitions, and these overarching governance implications is really the essential first step for any organization venturing into or expanding its use of artificial intelligence.
So for you, our listener, we hope this exploration of the initial clauses has provided some valuable insights. How do these foundational considerations, the scope of the standard, the importance of those reference documents, the definitions we've discussed, and the broad governance implications of AI, how do they resonate with your current understanding or perhaps with your organization's approach to AI? It's definitely something to, take away and reflect on.
Yeah, and we strongly encourage you to delve further into the full ISO IE 38507 standard and also to explore the normative references we mentioned, 22989 and 38500. This deep dive has provided an introduction, but there is a wealth of more detailed guidance available in those documents.
And as artificial intelligence becomes increasingly woven into the very fabric of our organizations and our society, it really prompts the question, doesn't it? How will organizations continuously adapt their governance frameworks to not only effectively manage the inevitable risks that come with AI, but also to fully realize the immense potential benefits it offers, all while steadfastly maintaining accountability and upholding essential ethical considerations? It's a big question and one that we will all need to grapple with moving forward. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.